if you know, you know.
It's TCA in stereo.
From the city to the lake, we make a noise.
It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. Let's go. It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go, indeed. The first of our 2025 series of TCA Summer Sessions. What's going on, everybody? Matt Robinson with you for one last moment in the TCA studio in beautiful Bytown, Canada. This is the last thing I have to do in studio before I hit the road for the cottage, is tee up this particular episode of the show that you are, of course, hearing on Wednesday. And by then, hopefully, I'll have my feet up, but as you know, if you've been around here for a while, that doesn't mean we're leaving you behind. This one, obviously pre-recorded. We talked to CTV's Matt Skube. We were calling it his Ottawa exit interview. And as you'll hear inside the conversation, this was recorded less than 48 hours before he was actually moving, before the moving trucks were showing up. For some reason, he made time to come in and do this gong show of a podcast. And for that, we appreciate him. As I mentioned, I am closing the door behind me as soon as I finish recording this tee up and this outro to this edition of the podcast. But that doesn't mean the show is going to end. You're getting this one today, obviously, as you're hearing it. On Friday morning, you're going to hear from Andrew Stoughton from the batflip.ca, just as the Blue Jays are getting ready to fire up the so-called second half of the season. There's really only about 66 games left, I believe, in the Blue Jays season, but that's what they call it, so that's what we'll call it. Stoughton will help us tee things up there. Michaela Schreider is here on Monday morning for your usual dose of, getting up to speed with what's gone on over the weekend and in the last week or so of sports. We'll have lots to get to with her. And next Wednesday, which is July 23rd, Ian Mendez will have a little bit of a deep dive with us here on the podcast. We're looking forward to that one for sure. He hasn't done a ton of media, although that was upended just a little bit, just a couple days ago. We'll get into that on the Monday show when we talk to Michaela. But Ian Mendez, about a year ago, jumped ship from the media over to working for the Senators. Hasn't done a whole lot of media since then. We will get in deep with him on what made him make the move and some of the challenges, some of the successes that he had in his first year working for the Ottawa Senators. All of that will be next Wednesday, the 23rd. Also next week, we will finally, I know I've teed this up once or twice before already, we will finally catch up with Steve Bunda. He had some car trouble here the last week that kind of derailed his day. If you remember, a few weeks ago, we tried to have him on and a giant tree fell on his hydro wires. That doesn't make it easy to podcast. So Steve Bunda will join also next week. So all kinds of great stuff coming up on the podcast here over the next few weeks while I'm out of town. And then I will be back towards the end of July, the beginning of August. We'll do a couple more shows here in the studio. And then I might try and disappear again. May try and slide away again in mid-August. We'll see what that looks like. We'll see if we can make that happen. But as you know, just because I disappear doesn't mean we shut down the podcast. So here is our first one of these 2025 TCA Summer Sessions with Matt Skube, his Ottawa exit interview.
It's time to take a holiday, shut it down and get away. All my friends are ready to play, and we're headed to the lake. Now I know what you came here for, good times and nothing more. We're walking out that door and headed to the lake. It's a talking summer, baby. Sports talk and we're sipping on craft beer. You can find us chilling on the lakefront. We can take it to the water. Let's take it to the water.
I guess we could call this a bit of an exit interview.
I like that.
With a guy making his debut on his way out of town. Matt Skube's here. What's happening, man?
Not too much, Rob. Thanks. It's finally nice to be here.
Yes.
Right? And to be in this studio. I've listened to a number of different episodes at different points, and especially with the boys at 1200. So thank you for having me before I actually do literally head out of town.
Well, this is the thing, eh? It's a little morbid. There had become a bit of a trend where people were coming here to do exit interviews after Bell Media was doing Bell Media things.
That's
right?
true.
And so they would come here and discuss what had happened and what had gone down and whatever else. Yours is a much happier exit interview. You have not been forced out of anywhere. You have made a choice to move on to other things. We're going to get into to all of it. I should let the good listener know, as far as the beer goes, you're not really a beer guy.
I used to be.
Yeah.
I used to be. And looking at that fridge, there's a couple of favorites, like Dominion City Sunsplit was and used to be one of my favorites.
Everybody's favorite,
Hands down. Hands down.
And so I thought, hey, you know what? Let's try something here. Let's reach out. Let's see if we can find a seltzer. Let's see if we can find whatever. And I did a little work, not enough, but a little, to see what in this realm is gluten-free and what isn't. And I thought I had found something. Well, in my mind, right up until the moment where you arrived, I had found something. I was feeling like mission accomplished. We're off and running. We're both going to try one of these seltzers. And like you walked in, took one look at it and went, nope. Like,
so again, for the listeners, I was diagnosed with celiac disease last year. My mom was diagnosed a few years ago, much later in life. And so it's been a journey for sure. I'm familiar with it because of having mom visit at different points.
Sure.
And so I know the snacks and know the routine and know everything else. And so it's been, that, and I don't drink a ton anymore either, mostly for my voice. I had lost my voice a few times when I was sick and saw a whole vocal therapist. And so it's like, it's few and far between, but now it's mostly because of celiac. And so it was, I'm
not even certain my voice works without.
I appreciate the effort that you went to, and then picked up the can and it says contains barley.
Well, literally ingredient one, like my sister is celiac, and I said to you before we got started, she would be far less diplomatic about this than you had been. Like, frankly, she would have turned on a heel and just walked back out the door. Look, it's Friday night as we record this. I'm not sticking around if you got nothing for me. So you have been incredibly understanding. I do apologize, but
it's all good.
This is nothing more than a confirmation to the good listener that if it's not beer, Matt has no idea what he's talking about.
Like Brickworks cider is one of my go-tos now, right? Like the 1906 or 19, the white can of Brickworks cider, which is like has been my favorite for a very long time. And I'm still very much a beer guy. I was talking to like Lake of the Woods Brewery up in northwestern Ontario. There's a couple Sleeping Giant Brewery from Thunder Bay.
I've had a bunch of their
big shout out to the hometown.
Yes,
they make a number of good beers too. So, and also here in Ottawa, right? Like, whether we're talking about, Dominion City, which again, love Dominion City, especially during the pandemic, fond memories of going to do, social distance pickups, doing the orders online when that was happening, and certainly a few others. There's the beer scene here in the city is very, very strong.
It's flourishing,
absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
I did do some looking around. There was another one as far as the seltzers go. Again, now that I don't know what's gluten free, what's not. Happy Dad, have you tried?
I don't think I've tried Happy Dad.
Okay.
Is that a local one?
Apparently, check first.
Yeah, okay.
Because apparently I don't know what I'm looking for. But Happy Dad is one. I don't think it's local, but it was one that also was under the gluten-free tab that I so forcefully swung at. Yes, exactly.
A strongly worded email to the LCBO after this.
And the other one was Sandbagger.
I love Sandbaggers.
Okay.
Yeah, I love Sandbaggers.
And I was looking around for that, and that makes me crazy. It wasn't in the gluten-free section,
really?
But it was listed on, obviously the seltzer, and it did say many seltzers are gluten-free, but I wanted to be sure. It went really well.
There's a certain irony in this, Matt.
Honestly, man.
All the work and effort that you tried to put into this.
half-assed it. You would have had the Sandbagger here, and it would have been fine. Yeah. But the reason I honestly wanted to go with that is it would have given me the chance to use the old Wedding Crashers. You sandbag son of a bitch.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's wedding season, kid.
You sandbagging son of a bitch.
Anyway, so Matt swung and missed. And like I said, I appreciate you being more forgiving than my sister would have been.
Again, I appreciate the effort. Absolutely.
To make it even worse, I am going to
Crack one.
have a beer.
Crack it.
That's what we do here.
Yeah.
So this is one that we were a part of brewing up for our 10th anniversary earlier this summer.
Oh, nice. Which I think I saw a picture of when you were celebrating that.
That's right, over at the Nita Beer Company,
Nice.
who brewed this up for us. And so I'm trying to keep the word alive, right?
Love
Make
that.
sure the good listener gets out there. Go pick one up. 190 Colonnade Road, right there in Nepean. All kinds of other stuff in there too, but make sure you grab one of our beautiful Bytown black IPAs.
Love it.
And really grab more than one, but then get someplace safe because it's a 10% alcohol on that.
10%.
Yeah. So
Yeah, okay.
don't go in for one and expect to drive home.
I wish I could try it but that is strong.
But honestly,
that is strong beer.
And at 10%, there might not be any barley in this one. Like they had to make room for the booze.
Exactly. It's all gone.
This is it. Look, there's a bunch of different things I want to talk to you about here before we conclude your exit interview from the nation's capital. But can we start with a question from a listener?
Always. Absolutely. I love that.
Okay. This comes from just a random listener. Just we'll call him S. Bunda. No, it's too obvious.
Okay.
We're going to call him Steve B.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Steve B.
First time, long time. No, okay. Yeah.
He would like to know why you're such a coward when it comes to paying off your sports wagers.
When I'm a coward?
Why you're such a coward.
Why I'm such a coward?
He says that you owe him from a fantasy football bet.
Oh,
And
that
you
was
were
like from
to-
our head-to-head.
Yes, that had you lost, you were supposed to wear, him being a big Halloween guy, you were
Yeah.
supposed to be wearing Halloween shirts to work for a week.
Okay.
And
For a week.
yeah.
Let's clarify something here.
Okay.
Let's clarify
I had a
something.
feeling
So-
you and SB may disagree. Whoever he
Steve B.
may be. Yes.
So let's...
And had you won, he was supposed to wear Christmas
stuff.
Okay.
This is coming back to me now.
Okay.
And it had been repressed, and I have not thought about this for quite a while.
It's apparently eating away at Steve B.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it is eating away at him. So, this bet was made in the News Talk 580 CFRA newsroom, very off the whim, as I recall, as far as I remember. And so it was a match. It was I think just our weekly matchup in the league in the TSN 1200 league that I'm in, and it's true. Now, I will say I am always willing to pay up on these bets, but I am not when I lose. Why on earth would I be going out of my way to track down Halloween stuff from him? So we made this bet.
Yes.
I think we saw each other shortly after it happened, and I said, "Okay, great, let me know." And I never heard back. I never got a T-shirt. I never got a costume.
So it is your contention
I never got
that he
any,
should have provided you the-
Right, why, as a loser in the bet, am I the one crawling all over the place, or being the one to nag him about the fact that I need to make good on this bet? If it was, a different way. Again, if I won the bet,
Right.
you better believe that 3 Christmas suits, or at least 3 Christmas jackets, would have been waiting for Bunda the next morning
good Santa,
somewhere where it was for him in order to make good on that.
Yeah.
But I never got any Halloween swag or T-shirts or anything else of the sort from him, and not even a mention until this very moment about, or any sort of follow-up at any other point until right now.
Yeah.
So if Steve B wants me to make good on it, then I'm happy to do that, especially before the start. Again, I'm leaving town.
Right.
So, but I'll leave that up to him how he wants to settle that. But
you do acknowledge you still owe him.
I do owe
Halloween
him. I owe him
something.
Halloween something, in whatever that may be. But again, I'm not the one that's going to be dragging this out.
You
and
didn't lose the bet and head over to winners.
That's what, that I need to do this myself.
No, okay.
No chance. Yeah.
All right. As a mutual observer here, or a neutral observer, not less than a mutual observer. I think that's fair. I think if you're going to ask somebody to wear something, you have to provide the thing, right? Like
that was my understanding, that he was going to
All right.
provide it, because my expectation was that if I won that week, that I was providing the Christmas swag for him to wear.
All right. Well, if this random anonymous Steve B was to end up in the studio in the next couple of weeks, I will pass along the feedback.
Be sure to. I'm sure I will be hearing about it.
Look, before we get to where you're off to and what's next and what's going on, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how you got here and how it went.
For sure.
You're a Thunder Bay guy. You mentioned the sleeping giant up there. How you end up? Well, I don't have time to get into all your educational, but you do sports media in university. Is that right?
So I was initially recruited from Thunder Bay to play on the football team at St. FX, at St. Francis Xavier University.
Okay.
So I was on the football team out there, like Cole's Notes.
Recruited too.
Yeah,
Nice.
I was recruited out there and played quarterback, and it was a fun experience. It was a lot. It was a big learning curve, I think, especially coming from somewhere like Thunder Bay, and smaller town, smaller city, I guess technically, but it was a pretty steep learning curve. I actually broke my thumb playing baseball. I think 2 weeks before I went out to St. FX. And so I went to training camp. Maybe it was 3 weeks. I forget exactly what it was. I went to training camp with a cast on my wrist.
As a sports novice, is a thumb important as a quarterback? Is a hand relevant?
Slightly. Only slightly.
Sure.
It's like, and I got teased by a bunch of the boosters out there. Like they had now seen it all, that I'm showing up to like captain's practices in the start of training camp with this big blue cast on my hand.
Already hurt?
Yeah, already injured. So, but...
Big frosh injury.
Yeah, exactly. So I was on the football team for a couple of years, didn't work out, but as a result of that, I actually got into broadcasting while I was still at St. FX. We were one of the first universities across the country to webcast games.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much all of them do it now.
Yeah.
But we were one of the first 5 to do it across the country. And,
is it dial-up yet? Is
our
it high
setup
speed
was
yet?
not like this, exactly. It was high-speed internet, thankfully. But my first setup, doing play-by-play for hockey in the quote-unquote press box at the Keating Millennium Center in Antigonish on the campus of St. FX, which was just an open area up above the ice. There's and it was just like you could sit up there, and I think there were like just spaced out bars in between.
Sure.
But I literally held like a handheld microphone with no headphones or anything else, and that's how I called games. And I ended up doing play-by-play for men's and women's hockey, for basketball, for volleyball. I learned how rugby. I didn't know anything about rugby. At the time, football was still being broadcast on Eastlink, so I wasn't doing football games, but I did a couple soccer games. Yeah. And they paid me. The athletic department paid me out there to do that. And I was also the
Is it fair to say they were just paying you to not come back and quarterback?
Quite possibly. Yeah, quite possibly. Like, listen, I think as a quarterback, and again, when I've been on 1200, the guys will give me a hard time. I never dressed. I just want to be clear and like full disclosure, I never dressed for a game, right? We had 6 quarterbacks in my first year there. Like our starter was in 5th year, backup was in 4th year. Yeah, like it was like 4 of us that were in first year. One of them had played like OVFL too, so he was a couple of years older than us, but it was an experience for sure, and it was fun learning at the next level. Yeah. But and then broadcasting, it was great. But then I would like bring buddies on at different points to have a color guy, and like one of my roommates at the time, who was a very huge Habs fan, but he starts yelling at the referees with the microphone in his hands, and like full blow, and like that was not offside. Like what are you talking about? Like, and I'm like, Boosh, like turn it, like either put your microphone down or like can we be just a little unbiased up here, please, while you're analyzing the play. So like that's literally how that started. Now again, things have come a long way. I just met with a guy who had just done broadcasting out there at St. FX for a few years and was calling games, and it's way more advanced now, which is wonderful. And almost every university is doing it. But from there, I went to the College of Sports Media in Toronto.
And it must have been reasonably new at the time.
It was, yeah. I was the 3rd class.
Oh, wow.
I was like the 3rd year.
What year would that have been?
So that was in 2009.
Okay.
So I was at St. FX from 2005 to 2009. And that was in Toronto, downtown Toronto, smaller school. Like they take like 40 kids max a year. And but I learned from, Dave Amber was an instructor, Elliot Friedman was an instructor, Jim Van Horn, who I watched on TSN in Sports Desk when I was a kid, was our television coordinator, has been a mentor of mine for, I haven't talked to him in a number of years right now, but initially conversations that we had for a number of years was great. And so all of our instructors were in the business, like Dawn Landis, who was the first woman to direct a CFL broadcast in Canada. Like she was our camera / production coordinator and prof and instructor for our 2nd year. So it was really cool, great experience downtown. Got to go, I remember going to a Canada Day game, which was great when I was doing an internship at Sportsnet. And so I got to go and be at the Rogers Center for Jays Canada Day game for I'm trying to remember, like way back when. I want to say that was Roy Halladay coming back and being back in before the tragedy happened. And so
this had been right in the era, and I'm really drilling deep on you here.
Yeah, no, go. Yeah,
of the G8 being in Toronto, and it postponed this series.
Yeah,
it was like was supposed to come back or something in that.
Yeah,
area.
It was like right in that was maybe the year before, or the year. I think
it must have been the year after.
The year
after, if Doc was.
I know. I forget exactly what it was.
But it all is sort of blending together. That like there was supposed to be this Doc is coming home.
Yeah, and then he was actually there, but then he was avoiding. I think talking too much at points and everything else, and so. But getting to hang out with at the time Buck Martinez, Pat Tabler, was very, very cool. And so, that was a great experience. Did an internship at Sportsnet, and then was really lucky enough, like a month after I finished my internship, I got a full-time on-air job back in Thunder Bay. Huh. And so went home. And I swore that when I left to go to St. FX, I swore that I was never going back to Thunder Bay, especially to live. I love Thunder Bay now, but it was like I was ready to go, and St. FX was, Nova Scotia was about as far away from home as I could be, which I loved, which was great. And then, so I was the weekend sports anchor for Thunder Bay Television and TBT News. I was the weekend sports anchor.
When you left, you thought you were superior?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Maybe slightly.
Yeah.
That's good. Hey, that's a good dad. That's a good dad joke. You can always appreciate a good dad joke.
Sure.
And so weekend sports anchor up there covering like the Lakehead Thunderwolves, hockey team, super competitive in the OUA and U Sports now. Mm-hmm. And then I was reporting on news and sports during the week. And then a year into my stint there, our part-time weather person quit. And I went to my news director and I was like, listen, if you don't find anybody else, I can fill in for weather like once a week or whenever our regular one wasn't there.
Sure.
And so, got weather and put weather on the demo reel. And I've always loved doing a little bit of everything. Yeah. Like I feel like I get bored easily. And so that's why
I would imagine hard to get bored doing weather in Thunder Bay for 10 months a year. Two of them maybe are a little dull. But
yeah, exactly. But otherwise, very active. And so it was he said, sure. And so that kind of led to weather being on the demo reel. So I was in Thunder Bay for 2 years, got a lot out of that experience, kind of cut my teeth, learned how to tell a story, at least initially. Mm-hmm. And then when I knew that I had enough of that experience, I was very close to getting another job.
So just catch me up here.
Yeah.
What year roughly would we be in now? How long is the sports media course?
So I was in Toronto for 2 years. Yeah. So CSM.
9, 10, 11.
So it was until 2011.
Okay.
2011 until 2013, I'm in Thunder Bay.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so we are 2012, 2013. So you're doing weather, you're doing sports.
We're fall of 2013. Yeah. And almost got a job at a different CTV station, a sports job. That one didn't happen. And then shortly after, was hired in Ottawa. And so, and some of the background to that is that I'm the oldest of four, and my brother, who is 15 months younger than me, immediately younger than me, came to U Ottawa from Thunder Bay. He played for the Golden Knights. He played for Ottawa West in Junior B for a number of years here, and was a very good hockey player. And he slowly, he had this plan, I think, when are you moving to Ottawa? And when are you moving to Ottawa? And when are you coming? And all of my siblings are here now.
Oh, wow.
So his plan actually worked.
Yeah, no
I think
kidding.
It's just subtly putting it out into the universe, and it actually happened. And so I applied initially for the sports job. They were hiring a weekend sports anchor and a weekend weather anchor here at the same time in 2013. I applied for the sports job. They saw that I had weather on my demo reel.
I can do both.
And so they hired a sports guy from Northern Ontario at the time, and they hired me for weather. And that was November of 2013.
Is this like wordplay? Were you also the guy from Northern Ontario?
Yeah. Yeah, I was. I guess I should say from Southern, because I'm coming Northwestern Ontario.
Right, okay.
And so because Northern Ontario to people from Toronto and sometimes even Ottawa is you get North Bay and you get Sudbury and you get maybe Sault Ste. Marie, but that's I say not even Muskoka to them.
This is it. Muskoka I grew up in Oshawa. We would say every weekend, are you coming up north this weekend?
Right.
It's like Haliburton.
Yeah,
it's
Haliburton, Muskoka. Right. Our family cottage is in the Kawarthas, right? Peterborough. So
it's an hour north.
Yeah,
we have gone north.
We're not north. Yeah, right. You're not north.
There's 12 more hours of north above you.
And that's honestly, that's my thing too. Is people that didn't realize it's a shorter drive from Ottawa to Antigonish, Nova Scotia than it is from Ottawa to Thunder Bay.
It's so far.
That's
to get
that's
out of
you
Ontario. Like if you're driving
you can
across
literally
Canada.
drive for 24 hours straight
Yes.
and not be out of Ontario, because you still, if you're going through Hawkesbury and all the way to the Quebec border, and Kenora on the very western, northwestern tip of Ontario is still 5 hours past Thunder Bay,
Yes.
and it's an 18-hour drive from here to Thunder
It's
Bay.
insane. I have done that drive from. No, I won't say it. Not from Thunder Bay. I've done the drive from Marathon. We talked in the
Right, we
green
talked
room there.
about it before
So
coming on, yeah.
3 hours this side of Thunder Bay, and even then I'm like,
Yeah.
it's so far.
It just
Like,
keeps going. Now, again,
you get to
depending on...
Sudbury and you're like, I recognize Sudbury. I know it's 5
nickel.
more hours.
The big nickel, yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
But and depending on what way you go is also the thing. Like if you get along, especially in the summer, if you get along Superior and you get through to Sudbury to Sault Ste. Marie and you're beautiful drive.
Yes.
Right? Wonderful drive.
along the lake. It's
Some
kinda nice.
beaches,
Yeah,
different points, some
sure.
wonderful stops where you can be. If you're on the northern route and you're going up through like Timmins, Kapuskasing,
Yeah, never done that.
Hearst, it is literally worse than the prairies. It's worse. It's flatter. There's nothing. It's not like, where there's silos and wheat fields or anything. There's nothing.
Right.
It's nothing for like 5 hours of driving. And it's because we used to go for, there were a couple of years where we had hockey tournaments in Kapuskasing from Thunder Bay, or Hearst, Claude Giroux, hometown.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Big shout out to
Yeah, of course.
Sens player. But there's nothing. And it's just, the province is not, it's much bigger, I think, than people really do expect unless you have to do that drive.
Well, it's so funny because in the last week or two, again, as you and I are sitting to record this, there's been a lot of comparisons between Giroux and Tavares, right? Older forwards, came home. Tavares from Oakville.
Yeah.
He did come home. And like Giroux came home too, or at least as close as you can get to it. Like it's a little
Wherever he
different
could
than
be. And still in Gatineau too,
Toronto
right?
to Oakville
Yeah.
is not the same as Ottawa to Hearst.
No,
it's not.
It's not. And so, yeah, exactly. You're right. It is close as close as he could
That's
be.
right.
But yeah.
So when you're leaving Thunder Bay to go to St. FX, do you have any sort of inkling that you might want to do sports? Does that happen because of the way your sports career goes at St. FX? And when you get to the Toronto sports media school,
Yeah. College of Sports Media.
Thank
CSM.
you.
Yeah.
what does that look like? Obviously, at that point, you've decided this is something I might like to do. Do you see yourself in play-by-play? Are you going to be doing talk radio? Or is it just, this seems like a business I'd like to be in. Let's see what comes of it when I get there. Like when you arrive on day one of schooling out there, what is sort of your end game?
So I have a couple stories for
Do
you
it.
for that. So one, I like to say that I watched sports and I watched Sports Desk before I watched cartoons, right? My mom likes to tell the story that I came home from the first day of JK bawling because I didn't know who the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were. But everyone
was
and
leaving
everyone
off
at
the stage
school
that
did.
day.
But I knew who was exactly. But I knew who had been traded. Who had been traded the day before, or in the NHL, or what was happening. And I would run up to mom like in the morning, especially because my dad traveled for business a lot when we were young. And I'd run up to my mom in the morning and be like, Mommy, there's been a trade. And she'd be like, tell someone who cares. Or when I would start bawling because she changed bowling off of TSN at the time. I'd be like, no, it's bowling. What are you doing?
Mom, like,
Yeah. So it. Love that one, right? I
my
love that.
only bowling reference. That's it. I got a whole board over here. That's my only bowling.
And so I have watched sports. The other one is, with Dad, like I remember watching the 93 World Series. Like I remember watching, I was sick at the time and I'd been sick for a couple of days. And I remember telling my dad in the 7th inning that, Dad, we need Joe Carter to bat. Right. And Dad's like, whatever, kid. Sure. Great. Yeah, it's a good idea. And sure enough, like I think it was the end of the 7th and going into the 8th, and sure enough, like the 9th, and the 9th happens, and touch 'em all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger one, and that legendary call. And he hit it, and my dad and I went absolutely nuts. And my mom came upstairs to be like, "What is going on?" And we're jumping around, losing it. And I immediately run to the bathroom and barf my brains out because I was just like couldn't do it. It's just like, but for
Too much
me,
excitement.
that's one of.
I thought you were going to say the next morning your dad was standing with his pro line.
Yeah, right.
What else do we need?
That'd be real nice, yeah. But like it was, that's for me one of my fondest memories, or even being at Jays games when I was younger, and my dad, this big foul Devon White foul ball hits a couple rows of seats in front of us, my dad reaches up and grabs it, hands it to me, right?
Yeah.
Well, now all you have to do, Dad, is get one for Adam, for my brother, right? Because foul balls are a dime a dozen. It's no problem. So it's like, for me, like growing up, it has always been sports.
Yeah.
It was always about sports. And then I played sports for, forever. I still play sports to this day. And I've loved them for a long time. And when I was in grade 10, and for those that, listening in Ontario, careers class, right, rolls around. You have to pick a project on a career that you want to do. And having loved sports, my mom actually taught Jennifer Hedger in high school in London. So I was born in London, Ontario. Yeah. All 4 kids in my family were born in London before we moved to Thunder Bay. I moved to Thunder Bay when I was 6.
Mm-hmm.
And
as you do.
Yeah, exactly. And so she taught Jen in London at Regina Monday. And I wanted to do sports broadcaster. I could find that was like just when, MSN was big. Clearly, Messenger was great, right? Way back in the day. Yeah. But internet and otherwise was just starting to really be a thing where it was Google was just starting and at least just starting to become big. Like we had the internet when I was younger, but it was just you were on there to, dial up and everything else. And so I could find no information.
Download pictures of your favorite wrestlers.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
What, just me?
Yeah. You and maybe Lever Sage. And so I had got on my parents' email and I wrote an email to the general TSN inbox at the time and was like, listen, if you could pass this on to Jennifer Hedger, that would be great. Like she had started out there. This is like when I was 16. Yeah. So this is, more than 20 years ago. And I was like, I explained who I was, who my mom was, what I was doing. And if you have any information like that, would be great.
Remember Mrs. Scooby from grade 4.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
Yeah. And so it was a few days later, I got this huge long email back. She's like, from Jen, she's like, hey, Matt, like Thunder Down Under, it was so great to hear from you. I love this connection. This is wonderful. And she goes on and lays out how she got to where she was, what her day to day was like, how much money she was making at the time too. And did my whole project for me, right? Which was great, which was awesome. Yeah. And now, again, my mom was my vice principal at the time, at high school. This is grade 10. Okay. And so I wrote up.
Good for street cred.
There were some good, again, I can tell you some other good stories about that too. I wrote out a whole script, like a quick, quote unquote Sports Center update about staff that at the school, like Baby Watch, like 3 of them were pregnant and like a couple of the coaches and other things. And it was like, and so I did this I had my whole project, but then I had my whole script, like I was on Sports Center and my mom told me at the time, she's like, the teacher at the time, like he's going to ask for your script because he's going to want to show everyone and tell everyone. And she's like, you don't give it to him. I was like, don't give it to him in order to have that satisfaction to show everyone else. Sure enough, so I go in, I read my script the day of, and he's like, Scooby, like that was awesome, that was great. Can I have your notes? Can I have your script? And I was like, nope. And like walked away. It's like no chance. But
that is what to see without the reassurance of the vice principal.
Yeah. She had all the inside scoop,
sure,
right?
But I just give my teacher whatever he asked for. Like, yes, here.
Right. That's what I mean. And so it was like, nope.
Please don't mark my spelling.
But at the end of Jen's email, she's like, if you're ever in Toronto, let me know, and you can come for a tour of the TSN studio.
Nice.
And so I guess I was 15 at the time because I turned 16 the summer after, between grade 10 and grade 11, and it's still to this day one of, if not the best birthdays I've had. Went and played Angus Glen, the North Course, with my dad in the morning. Yeah. It was a few years after the Canadian Open had been there. And so went and did that. And then in the after, like later that night after Jen started working on the late shift. Right. All 4 kids and my parents.
Holy cow.
Went to the TSN studios.
It's like going to Wonderland, but
it was like,
sports nerds.
it was wild. And so we walk in, and like that was the time like when Jay Onright. So we met Jay at the time when they were still doing updates in the newsroom. Oh yeah. At the time too. So like we stood like beside the camera and watched Jay, and none of his video worked for it. He was about to literally pull one of us on camera before his producer in his ear clearly told him not to do that. But he was like, that's just the kind of guy Jay is. Yeah. Clearly. And so, but we got to see that happen. They turned the lights on in the studio. I got to sit at the desk, at the Sports Center desk, and I did a quick read through of headlines at the time. Became your MSN profile picture. That was like, that I don't know where that picture is right now. It's kicking around somewhere. I need my mom to find it, because I'll tell you why in a little bit. But and so I did a quick read through the headlines without doing it, and I did it no problem off the teleprompter. I'd never done it before, but one of the camera guys who rolled it, he's like, not bad, kid. He's like, most people who come in here and try to do that, and just it's not like that. Yeah. So that was cool. We walked through that's again 20 years ago. If you remember the NHL and TSN had the rink set.
Yes.
Remember they had the rink?
Yes.
So it was July. It's the end of July.
Wasn't good.
And so it's all broken down. Exactly. So gimmicky.
Did they
It's
still
not,
have the
not one of their
puppets?
best ones. I think I'm not sure if the wheel was there for Maggie or not, but it was all broken down. It was the middle of summer, but we walked through, and then Jen was taking us to another studio after we saw everything else. And one of the best lines for me was, and I'll tell you the other one too in a sec, was my mom was like, "Wait, people just sit because they're on the row, right? So the row for TSN is all the guys and the girls that are sitting there watching games, logging it, writing the highlight packs."
Yeah.
And she's like, "They get paid to sit here and watch games?" and Jen was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Ma, it'd be like the best job ever to
Mom,
sit
this
here
is what I'm
and to try to
to
do
get
this."
to.
It's like, yeah, it was my first introduction to TV and to broadcasting and everything, actually seeing it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so it was a little overwhelming. But then we cut to the NHL and TSN studios. And there's this yelling coming from behind closed doors and like really loud yelling. I was, what's going on? We walk in the studio and there's a CFL game on. And so at the time, Dave Randorf, Jock Climby, Matt Dunnigan, Chris Schultz were all still there. Schultz was yelling about a holding penalty, about something, and he was losing it. And so we met all of them. Turns out,
Randorf can get pretty loud too.
Randorf, I think, can get loud too.
Yeah.
He's in Tampa.
He's in Tampa now.
He's in Tampa now.
No reason to get loud anymore.
Yeah.
He's got a good gig going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, Chris Schultz had some of the biggest hands I had ever shaken. Him and Kahari Jones.
Yeah.
They're just some of the biggest hands that I've ever.
Course, yeah.
I think that I have fairly large, again, playing quarterback and holding that ball, but their hands just enveloped mine. I'm like, oh my God. Jock Climby has, this can be a whole big debate, but has a camp up in Thunder Bay, because in Thunder Bay it's camp. Southern Ontario, it's the cottage.
Yes, it
Other
is.
areas of the country, it's a cabin.
Yes.
Right? We get into that,
Yes, we
all
sure
the
do.
time.
I dated a girl for a while from Sault Ste. Marie, and she would always say, "I'm going out to camp." And I
Going
went
to
up there
camp.
to visit. I'm like,
This is
not
That's what I mean. This isn't camp to me, like sleepover camp, like
Right.
overnight camp. No, I'm just
on
going
the
to camp.
floor or like on
Yeah.
the ground in a tent. Well, no, I don't really
No,
feel like
it's just
coming. I'm
camp.
busy
You're
that
at the
weekend.
lake.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So, so he had a camp, or a family camp, I think, up there. So my dad's talking to him and chatting to him, and great conversation, all great guys. It was awesome. And then we're leaving, and Jen says, like, Matt, because she knew we had done the project, and Matt's like maybe thinking about getting into this one day, and Dunnigan was like, "You've got a great face for radio, kid," is what he says to me when I'm 16. And I was like, listen, having played sports my whole life, it's like, I don't care who you are. If you chirp me, it's coming right back.
There you go. Okay.
And so without flinching, I was like, "That's okay, Donnie. I'll have your job one day." and all the guys are like, whoa, whoa. I was like, and then I thought about that immediately. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that to him, but he loved it.
Of
and they
course,
loved it, and
that's
right,
the language.
That's the language. That's
Yes.
the culture, and and they loved that. And so I'm excited to tell him that hopefully at some point this summer and tell him that story. He looks way more like Santa Claus now than he did back then when I met him. But and so that was my first introduction. So that's when I really started. Back to the whole point of your question was very
That's what
long.
we do here.
It's like, am I in TV or radio or broadcasting? I can just talk for,
Of course.
for 8 minutes.
That's how these shows end up like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was like my initial introduction. That's where I was like, I thought about it. Sports would be cool. What would I actually do in sports? Like I thought about like sports management at the time at Laurentian University.
Oh, yeah.
And or at Brock, which they have a good program there too. But I was like, that was my first introduction to sports broadcasting.
Yeah.
It kind of got put on the back burner because I was recruited to play football. So
Right.
I was still like, when I was going to X, it was still.
Should have said, Dunnigan,
I was
you'll
in-
be calling me. My
Right,
games
I was
here
still
soon
like in
enough.
play mode kind of
Yes,
thing. I
of
wasn't
course.
really worried about what I was doing after yet. I just was excited to still be playing ball and being at school. And then when it didn't work out, it kind of like landed in my lap. And then CSM was a new school, and my editor-in-chief and my very good friend Danielle, when we were in fourth year, was like, "Have you seen this?" Actually, it was the summer between third and fourth year because I applied. I did an audition in Toronto, and I got in like in November of fourth year at X. And I kind of, I kind of effed off for second half of fourth year.
Sure, yeah.
and I still a few credits shy of having my degree, which
Right.
my mom is on my case about, which I will
course.
finish at some point in my
Yeah.
life. But I was like, what am I doing? I'm going to broadcasting school next year, and I just want to broadcast games, and I want to cover sports.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did for the latter half. And so that was eventually
But you
my
didn't
path
have
into
like
it.
when I get there, like, I don't know, in that first year, is there you kind of do everything, and then in second year they ask you to zero in. Are you going to produce? Are you going to host? Are you going to play by play?
No, it was like it was like, one of the things was when you were there initially, and there were I think like 34 of us in my class. I knew I wanted to be on the air. And they ask you to put up your hands, like who wants to be on the air, and 3/4 of the class,
of course,
right? Like at least 25 of us put up our hands.
Yes.
By the time we were done the 2 years, once you're introduced to radio, once you're introduced to producing, once you're introduced to camera, to editing, at the end they asked us the question at the end of the 2 years again, and there were I think 5 or 6 of us at that point that were still truly pursuing.
Yeah, you sort of get
you learn all of the business, you learn all the different things that you can do.
Like when I went to radio, right?
Yeah.
And you get there, and on day one, they're like, anyone who's here to make money, there's the door.
Yeah.
Like, you should go now.
Yeah.
But then through year one, you get a bit of everything.
Right.
And then in year two, you sort of run the radio station. Those who want to be on air are your on-air people, your production people who want to do that, do the sales, there's marketing. And so you sort of get segued off.
And it was mostly the same, I think, too. And it was, but they still, I think they had the wherewithal as well to know that of where the business was going, that even though I wanted to be on the air, when I went to Thunder Bay, I was still everything. Like I was shooting.
You have to be.
I was shooting. I was writing. I was editing. I was doing my on-cams.
Yeah.
And then those are for my reporting days. And then for anchoring, I was still cutting my own highlight packs.
Yeah. Like for me, like for radio production, I was awful at it and I hated it. And I was like, just do enough to get through it.
Yeah, exactly.
And and then you end up doing something like this and you get annoyed. Like this doesn't sound good enough. You have to keep teaching yourself to get better. And
Exactly.
Get better. But now I won't say I enjoy it, but like you almost have to reteach yourself something that you paid to have someone teach you. But you're just like, I hate this. I don't want to ever do it again until you need it. And you're like, oh, I should have done more with that. Right?
And I think the thing, like for me too, and we were just talking about it briefly before we came on too. I have enjoyed. Like I get bored a little bit easily, but I have enjoyed knowing all parts of the business. So when I vividly remember at Sportsnet, I wanted just to sit in the control room for Sportsnet Central and just listen to the directors and listen to the producers. And there still had switchers at the time. And, that's some of that has gone away clearly.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know inside, like, here's what, at the national level, this is what happens.
This is what it looks like.
In the control room, this is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like. And I wanted to know. And one of the directors said to me, she's like, what do you want to do? I was like, well, I want to be on air. She's like, well, what are you in here for? I was like, well, I just want to know. And she's like, oh, that's actually kind of impressive. So it was one of those things where, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like, I've enjoyed knowing all different parts of the business. And I think that I knew that early on. And my versatility as a result of that has allowed me, to be able to do just about, while here in Ottawa, I think maybe other than the actual technical jobs of producing the radio shows and the TV shows, I have done every job, or I did every job at 87 George Street at Bell Media in some capacity.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like even in just this, as you know, like we've had a bunch of different radio people in here over and it's funny how many of them kind of look and go, I don't remember how to do that. Yeah. I haven't had to do that since 2000.
In a while.
Whereas your Conas Vitas or your Creeches or whatever, or your Bundas or your Steve B's.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't spoil that for anybody.
No.
The curtain's been pulled back. But like guys who learned the production side first and then how to go on air.
Right.
You sort of have some utility, right?
Or doing it at the same time.
100%.
Which is happening now, too. Right?
It has to. It's so hard.
That's just the way, that's reality, unfortunately.
That is,
And so, but they're there and they're doing it and they're doing it well.
Yep.
So
you end up here in the nation's capital doing news eventually.
Yep.
You sort of make your way in. You and a guy from Northern Ontario to do sports and weather and what. Is there any part of you as it shifts towards news that's like, I don't know, I'm going to pump the brakes here a little bit. I'd really like to stay in the sports lane. Or is it already dawning on you that like Canadian media sort of is shrinking fast and I'd better just, for the moment, take like news is always going to be more stable than sports. Like, how do you sort of make your way over into that side of it? And is there any part of you that pushes back against it? Like, I really want to stick with just the sports part of this and see if I can make it go.
So it's a really good question. And I think that when I got to Thunder Bay, I enjoyed the news part of the job more than I thought I was going to. And what I think ended up happening is that I ended up falling in love with local news more than anything else, right? Like I think I really enjoyed the storytelling part of news. And sports is there too, for sure. But I think news is very different in the stories that you're telling and the impact that they're having on people, holding politicians or others to account. And just being able to tell the community's stories, whether it's a CHEO telethon story, whether it's, a flooding story, whether it's, the weather stories and the tornadoes are, it's right across the board. And so I fell in love with that. And then I fell in love with local TV, I think more than anything too. And so sports was always and always has been in the back of my mind. And I was really discouraged, I think, too, when CTV made the decision to cut sports and sportscasts from local newscasts. Right. And I think that was hard. It was hard to take at the time for that, and especially with where I was trying to go and what I was trying to do. I think in the back of my mind, it never left the fact that I still wanted to do something like TSN someday. Sure. And wanted to do something else. But then I also, I kept discovering more and more, and I did never, it's never been an ambition of mine to do national news, right? So I'm not a huge politics guy. I like to consider myself that I'm very well read, and I will do my research, and I'm
informed.
Exactly. And I need to be in order to be a news personality. Sure. And so, but I'm not I'm not like Graham Richardson. Like is what is the comparison I'll make? Who has been a political reporter, who has served in the as a national and on the national scene for many different times, and he loves it, and that's his thing, and he is really, really good at it. Yes. And so, but I have never it's never been an ambition of mine to be doing national news. I'm happy to do it still. Like that's not to discount that that I say I'm never going to do that.
If a door opens,
especially every now and then. Yeah. But I will always, and I've tried to keep all the doors open all the time. So sports has always, I think, kind of been in the back of my mind. But then local TV and being at a local level, like some of the stuff that I could get away with and some of the limits that I could push when I'm doing weather, when I'm doing news, and we have trending segments or we have different stuff. Right. For me, I'm also a theater kid. Like I'm a musical theater kid.
You don't say.
I grew up doing theater, so like I'm a performer, I think, in ways too, as well as being a journalist. Yes. And so I tried to strike a balance, and it took a lot of awareness sometimes. And sometimes about where it had to be serious and where it had to be on the line, and then where it didn't have to be, and where I could show off the personality and show off who I am.
This is a moment to
and and local TV offered all of that. Right. And even in the same newscast, in the same broadcast, even if I was anchoring a show, there were moments at different points all over the place where I could show off all of those sides of me. And so, and I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed being able to do that. Like I some people may think it's gimmicky, and some people, certainly don't like my style, and I totally understand that, and I get that, and I don't, I'm not gonna, I don't take it personally.
The thing has to be awareness, right? Like
and
coming out of this story, is not the right time for a pun or a dad joke or
coming
a dance,
out of the murder story or the crime story and going into.
But
something
over here, we're talking about something kind of lighthearted.
We're going to talk about sends, or we're going to talk about sports, right? Yeah. Writing, one of my favorite things is like, and we still had sports when Katie Griffin and I were doing the weekend news, and we were doing news, sports, and weather. The two of us were doing everything. And I would write like a little sports script for her or something and get her to say some, not outlandish things, but I would put it in, I'm not saying that. I don't like, what does that even mean? Right. Or write in like something about like bang, like for a home run or something else like that. Right. Or like, like it's gone. And I'd put it like in extra, like exclamation points. So, like, there were or names, having her try to say sports names sometimes. I love KG, and she still is one of my very good friends.
Why not have a little fun with it when we're talking about non-life and death situations?
That's what I mean. And so it was, and I loved that part of it too. And so I
You're not going to see Peter Mansbridge do that on the national, but we can do that on a local level here when the moment is right.
Right. And I think that, and I found, and I became very adept at finding those moments, right? And then as a result, being able to establish rapport, not just with other anchors or other people at the desk or anybody who was there, but also with the community and with the listeners and the viewers. So,
what would you say as and we'll get there where you're going next, and what you're going to do, but as you're heading on to your next chapter and you look back at the time you spent here in the nation's capital, whether it be most important, most fun, like whatever spin you would want to put on the question, like the most memorable things you covered as a news personality here in the city over the last, I think it's 13 years,
almost 12 years.
Yeah,
almost 12 years. Yeah, which is wild. It was wild when I was finishing, just like saying that number aloud.
Yeah,
because it's kind of, I think it certainly has crept up on me, and it was. It's been wild. Like, I'll never forget my first day. My literally first day. I'm a weekend weather anchor, but I'm going in to learn from JJ Clark, right? Who is a local institution. 100%. And it was, and not being from Ottawa, I didn't necessarily understand, but they needed someone to be at the rink of dreams.
Get here and you're just like, it takes a minute to figure out.
For sure.
This guy's a big deal.
Exactly. Like huge deal.
Yeah.
And so, but they need somebody at the rink of dreams. And, and I'm sitting in the 2:00 editorial meeting in the afternoon, and John Ruddle, who's now the executive producer, but was producing the 6:00 show at the time.
Right.
He's like, Matt, do you skate? Like, and you're like, my first day at CTV Ottawa, like, you're filling out paperwork and I'm just supposed to be around and I'm just in a meeting just to be in a meeting. And he's like, do you have skates? I was like, yeah, like they're at home. Like I was living with my brother and my future sister-in-law. Like they were engaged in Sandy Hill.
Right.
A 2-bedroom apartment. Like that's where I moved in because I was part-time to start.
Exactly the time when you want your brother to move in.
Yeah. And no, exactly. And I was like, well, I helped plan their wedding. So it actually worked out quite well.
All right.
And so I ran back, got my skates, and I was on air my very first day. Yeah, which was wild. So I love that. I think that, there's been the natural disasters and things that have happened certainly do stand out, right? Like I remember with the tornadoes, like in Dunrobin, like I remember doing weather that day and just warning people, hear the sounds. Like if you hear a train coming, if it sounds like a train or anything else, like you need to get into the basement away from windows. Yeah. Like super serious situations, the flooding, the few different floods we had, 2017, the 2019, the derecho.
Which was the first time I'd ever heard that word in my life.
So was I. Like I'd done weather for years and I'd never heard that term before. And so like, the derecho was kind of wild too. Those were like, the shooting on Parliament Hill is a day I'll never forget, right? Like I was at home in Sandy Hill at the time and was like, heard the news on CFRA initially, called the newsroom, and our assignment editor, John Krupe, was like, just get here. And like, I'm walking down. And my mom was really nervous because like at that point there were unconfirmed reports that there was a second shooter and like and the market's on lockdown and everything else. And so being around the newsroom,
the radio center, everything was shut right off.
Exactly. Like being in the newsroom on a day like that was wild, right? Like but the adrenaline rush that you get from breaking news is somewhere that is just something that it's hard to describe to people unless they've experienced it or unless you've jumped out of a plane or at different points. It's not always like that, but it's a rush. It's a rush when you're trying to confirm, get information and whatnot. And then the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. The pandemic was overwhelming in ways, but it was.
Take me inside the first little while of that. Like when we're all getting sent home. We're not doing a lot. Like, are you doing the show?
I never worked from home.
Okay.
I didn't work from home for one day. I couldn't. We couldn't. We had to be at the station every day because everything that we had was there. Like
a week where there just wasn't news, or were you expected to be in every day?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. The world, whatever it was, March 12th or 13th.
I didn't go out.
I know it was, and the world shut down on whatever that day in March was in 2020.
Yeah.
And the next day I was
still
true.
Set the world on fire.
Exactly. But the next day, I'll never forget, I was on the train. We lived in Little Italy at the time with my wife and our oldest son, who was just over 1. He was 14 months at the time, about to start. He was supposed to start daycare. He literally had his week of initiation for daycare like the week before.
His frosh.
And then, exactly. And then the world shut down. And so, the next day, I remember riding the train because we were close to Bayview Station, but we were still on the north-south line at the time, and the one at the station at Dow's Lake, I forget what it was called at the time. Yeah. But I got on that train and I got to Bayview Station to get on the LRT, and I was the only one.
Wow,
only one there.
That's
at
eerie,
like 9 o'clock in the morning. It was beyond eerie. Like there was literally.
I'm the only one in this.
It was the train drivers, like
iRobot, or what's the. I've got the wrong movie. I Am Legend.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like you're the only one left in the world.
I was the only one on either train other than the operators who were operating the trains, but there was no one else. Literally no one else. And so it was, going into the station and being there, and there was the issue with the pandemic, which I think I've said a few times. There was so much information. Yes. and things were changing at
Our
different
little monkey
points.
brains were not capable
And
of keeping up.
Yeah, and it was just like, but it was trying to pick out, Matt, what information was most important to
Right.
tell people, because we knew that we were going to overwhelm people anyways. But how do you sift through the most
Say this
important
first,
stuff?
say this the most,
to
say
tell
this the
people,
loudest.
you know,
Yes.
because, you know, I remember, like, you know, wiping down our groceries
Yes.
and like thinking that, you know, it was hand
Yes.
sanitizer
Yeah.
and, you know, the Lysol wipes that you could get nowhere, and like
No.
the run on of, like, you know, and I've never understood why why toilet paper is the first thing to be sold out everywhere in a situation like that. So, you know, but it was like, you know, you're trying not to cause
had
mass panic.
A friend of mine, I guess this part isn't important, but a friend of mine
Yeah.
came to visit from Australia. She'd never been to Canada before.
Okay.
And this is 2017, it's like February or whatever. And she wants to go skating for the first time. So we go down to the storage locker here in this building, and I'm digging through my storage locker looking for this extra pair of skates. And she turns around behind us, and there is someone, because the storage lockers aren't locked, they're like chain link fence
Oh, gotcha.
pens
Yeah, okay.
or whatever. So
Yeah.
there's like
So
8
you
or
can
10
see-
of them in
you
a
can see all through them. Yeah.
And she looks around to somebody else whose locker is in the same area as mine, or pen is in the same. She's like, I don't know what this person thinks the end of the world is going to look like, but they're expecting it to be bad. And they must have had 12 different 12 packs of toilet paper. and this is 3 years before the pandemic.
Right, not even-
And
not
we
even
think this is hilarious.
2020.
Like, I don't know what you got going on, but you have my sympathy, right? Like, and then that, for whatever reason, when we had the run on toilet paper, was like, I got to go down to our lock, see if I can still get in there. That's what I
mean.
swipe
Like,
out some of there.
I don't get it. It's like,
I don't know what that guy saw coming, but God bless him today, right? Like,
you know where your stash is. Yeah,
this
right?
is
Yeah.
it. But it was so strange like that. Like, I'm with you. Like, all of a sudden I've had a kidney transplant, so I'm on immune suppressant drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody was up or nervous or whatever, but I'm being extra cautious, as the kidney transplant clinic is telling us to be. And so I must have been washing my hands like 18 times a day, and I'm not leaving my own home.
Yeah.
But like day 4 or day 5 or day 6 of the lockdown, and this is before everybody's brains turned to mush, but mine included, my hands are just cracked and falling apart because I'm
You're watching them
so much.
every day. So
and I
many
haven't
times.
left my home.
And all
like,
the-
there's no one else here.
Like the hand sanitizer, before we knew about masking,
Yes.
and before masks became
This
the big
is airborne.
thing, right?
Stop scrubbing your counters. Well, don't stop, but don't do it so often.
No, exactly. And so it was hard. It was
Yeah.
it was difficult, and it was, you know, my wife was working from home
Mm-hmm.
and looking after our toddler, because I had to be in the office
Right.
like during the day.
Yeah.
And so it was, like that's a memorable one for sure at different points. And you know, there are different points through that when it happens for such a prolonged period, lockdown, and then coming out of lockdown, and
and
now we have
lockdown
another
again.
wave, and so there's another lockdown, and now they're trying to close parks, and it's
Yes.
what is Doug Ford doing?
Right.
Like this is bananas, and so you know they're all the ebbs and flows, and then you know you get caught up in it for a while, and then you stop to think. It's like, oh, we're reporting on people dying,
Right.
Like you know, you're kind of
It's that old expression, like
You're-
one death is a tragedy, 1,000 deaths is a number or a statistic or
exactly.
something.
And that's just like you just get you
Yeah.
you get
Hey,
it's
no
not
more
much
sick
to it,
today,
but you
50
just
more deaths today, and you're
you
like,
just get numbed out to
yeah.
it, right? But then it hits you at different
Yeah.
points, and sometimes unexpectedly,
Yes.
like, oh man, like that's like this is brutal. And then you know someone or a friend of friends and people who are losing
Yeah.
loved ones in long-term care or otherwise, and the disaster that is happening in long-term care. So it's, you know, I don't want to be too depressing,
No.
but like it's those years that were really hard and trying to sort through and whatnot, and finally coming out of that now into then it was vaccines
Yes.
and you know and the whole vaccine conversation, which we're certainly not going to get into here.
we are not.
No, and so so like that was like those were I think those were like the newsy highlights. Outside of that, it was, you know, for me, you know, the CHEO stories, doing the CHEO telethon, you
Yes.
know, was a real privilege to be able to do, and telling the stories of a lot of the
if perhaps more than anything else in your entire time here in the city are going to leave associated with CHEO. The amount of things you did, the amount of time you put in, the amount of
like I love
and like there are much worse things to be associated with, right? Like if that's
Yeah.
what people remember about you, I think that's
I'm totally good with that
Yeah.
with that legacy here in the city.
And it wasn't just that. Like you did plenty for the Ronald McDonald House, right?
Yeah, I love. They had wonderful people at the Ronald McDonald House, and they just do amazing work there too. And otherwise, Toy Mountain I think was another big one for sure too, right? And because I've loved Christmas and have loved Christmas for a very long time, like that love for Christmas is totally legit,
and we, equaled only by Steve B's love of Halloween.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
Allegedly.
We just passed the halfway point to Christmas.
Yes.
When we're recording this, so let's give you a sense of when
you're the only person in this room who's thought about that. Tell me about this, because someone else who you know quite well was in here. I can't remember now. It was last summer or the summer. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Patricia Bowl.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with her about covering the trucker convoy, which was.
I almost blocked that out a little bit. I'm not going to lie, but yeah.
But it was a massive story in this city, and obviously nationwide it became.
Yeah.
And I remember I had gone home. Was that January 21? Maybe 22. It doesn't. It must have been 22. Whenever the vaccines were coming in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was at home with my dad, and I remember saying to him, "You've watched so many huge news stories over the world where there are massive crowds or there are protests or there whatever. And they're real, but they're a million miles away." And this was, hey, I've had lunch at that McDonald's. I've got my shoes at that mall that they're out in front of.
Yeah.
Right? Like the protest itself was one thing. And obviously it was legit. It was real. It was a gong show. But I was watching the day that the police finally said, enough, we're moving these people out, right? And it had started to back it off. And that was the memorable part for me, was watching these sort of police actions that we have seen in other parts of the world, but I get off the bus there when I'm going to the market. Or it was this incredibly unfamiliar thing happening on a super familiar backdrop, like a movie being reshot in your hometown, as a great band might say. What was it like to cover that?
So a couple of things. When I was taking the train down to Rideau Station at the time, and the moment the elevator got up high enough, you could hear the horns.
Yeah,
you could hear them, especially initially, and so. There are even times now when I hear a trucker horn that there's still a small amount of PTSD, I think a little bit of it. And I'm not making light of PTSD. No. But it's that, just that it triggers you a little bit for the fact of going back to those times. The smell of gas, just the smell of gas and diesel everywhere, around downtown and around the station. But it was the moment that you stepped outside of our station, you heard it. And so it was...
Because for people who aren't familiar, you are right downtown. The station is
right in the Byward Market of Ottawa. So if you know Ottawa at all, and then and the very the easternmost part of where the occupation was at Rideau and Sussex.
Yes.
Right. And so it was right outside the Rideau Centre, like you're talking about, right at where the Chapters was.
Yeah.
And right at the CIBC at the bank of the corner and
that glorious
the
McDonald's.
Chateau Laurier and the Rideau Street McDonald's. Exactly. Which you also covered
which I
witnessed numerous
from multiple perspectives
incidents in personally and also covering it. So it was one of those moments too where you knew when you talked to the people I think that were there or heard some of the interviews that it was not going to be over soon.
Yeah.
The initial part too was we just, the police chief at the time lost his job over it because of not having a plan and also just allowing the trucks to come down with an escort almost and set up shop. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was,
when you pull into
kind of surreal. It was kind of surreal.
Like a music festival that has a camping component.
Yeah.
And there are volunteers Point You Go Park.
Yeah. It was that's kind of it's almost what it was when they came to town.
And you're oh no.
So
I don't know how to get shouty.
Now there's a certain part of me that they didn't know what it was going to be. They didn't know what it was going to turn into. They didn't know that they were not going to leave.
That's right.
And what eventually it was going to be.
People have a right to protest.
Right.
So
people have a right to protest and to do it. But when you are disrupting people's lives in that way
at a time.
for weeks, which was ended up being I think almost close to 4 weeks.
It becomes something else.
Then that's totally different territory in my opinion. Yep. So and that's my opinion
100%
is for it. And so but yeah, it just wears on you. It wears on you in what it was. It wears on you in whether it was local politicians, federal politicians, MPs or counselors or otherwise, like everyone was at their wits' end for it. And that day that you're talking about when the police moved in, I remember it vividly because I was on the air I was anchoring the new news. And we came when the police started, when we got word or it was clear they were going to do something, we went on the air early, like I think at 11:45. And I stayed on the air until, I think I was on there for 4 hours. I was on there or maybe 3 hours. I was on there till 3 or 4 o'clock. We stayed with it.
Sure.
Right through.
Yeah.
No commercials, I don't think. And then maybe a few commercials. But then I remember Stefan Keys took over for me for an hour or two. I was back on to do the 5. And then Graham did the 6 at the time. And then we stayed on after the 6 was done from like 7 until 8 or until 7:30. So it was like I was on air.
And like for people who aren't familiar, like that is super unusual for local news.
Oh,
to
like
have
that was like
something
we cut in and we cut off everything
yeah.
else like that. That's how big. Like again, like that's how large scale and how big of a story it was.
This was a huge deal.
Yeah, and so and it was Graham at the time too did a lot of he was on the ground and with his camera and talking to them and had a much better sense I think too of what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
They had a message they wanted to be heard and I don't blame them for that, but the lengths at which they went to and the disruptions to which they caused, and that's where I think for many people, especially those that live downtown, it crossed the line.
It's funny, and in funny, I mean it's not funny, but there are a lot of people across Canada, and maybe before I moved here, I would have been guilty of it myself, that are sort of. There's the idea of Ottawa when we open a national newscast as Ottawa is debating such and such or whatever. It almost becomes interchangeable with the government.
Yeah, it is. Well, in news it is. If you don't live in Ottawa. And
that's right.
Unless you live in Ottawa, then it drives me bananas a little bit.
That's right. And so if you're watching from Oshawa or Windsor or Red Deer or Vancouver or whatever, and, it becomes really easy. And look, it's not that these truckers didn't have some legitimate grievances. They overstayed their welcome. It was become far more than a protest. But to the average Joe who doesn't live here, you forget that Ottawa doesn't mean government. People live here.
Yeah.
And they can't sleep. They can't get to work. They can't whatever. A protest can block the average Joe's day, and it's meant to inconvenience. It's meant to draw attention or whatever. And that can happen for a day or a few hours or whatever. You can't stay for weeks on end. And I felt like as much as the backdrop, like I talked to you about off the top of this subject of seeing something really familiar or unfamiliar happen in a very familiar setting, I also felt like some of the attention that it got was sort of like they're not just blocking Parliament Hill and making it tough on politicians.
Right.
You are shutting down a downtown, and if we did this on your way to work or in front of your home or in front of your you would not be quite as, you would understand why this has become a problem.
And I think we were trying to balance it too.
Yeah.
Like, you want to tell their story
100%.
and share their message, but we were also trying to tell those stories of the people of lives that it was greatly impacting too about what it was. And so
there's a friend of mine who lives down there. He's a totally blind guy, gets around with a guide dog, and he would go outside his front door and his guide dog would just stop dead. I don't know what to do with this. Right. The sound was so overwhelming.
Yeah.
That guy now can't leave his home. He's stuck at home because
for weeks.
Yes, because his guide dog has no idea how to handle this overload of
because there's no animal that's trained.
No
to do
animal,
that.
no human is trained for how to deal with this.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah. So that was. I won't forget the day too. Yeah. That it was broken up by police and being on the air for that amount of time too. Yeah, for sure.
You're headed to Toronto.
Hold on. Before we go on,
Let's do.
Chio was was like for me, like kids have always been. I have 2 kids of my own now.
It makes me tear up too often.
That's the thing too. Like having 2 kids of my own. My youngest son was taken to Chio when he was a week old because he stopped breathing a couple points, and he spent a few days there. And they have the most wonderful people being. So like I loved doing anything and everything for them. Ronald McDonald House for sure, and a few of the others. I'm on the foundation board for the Royal here in Ottawa too. But
Mental Health Hospital.
Toy Mountain has been was a big one, helping kids and Christmas and making sure we with the support of so many people in the community, we ensured that thousands of kids across the city and the region had presents to open Christmas morning. Like that for me.
Yes.
And the community impact for that will always be more memorable for me than anything else that I did on the news side. So,
and it wasn't hard when I can't remember where you posted first, doesn't matter, Instagram or X, that you were leaving. And the replies, like, that was the stuff that all surfaced to the top before anything else. Like, we all get very familiar and very protective and very people who, this is who I listen to on my morning radio show. This is who I watch my news with. And if you change that, I'm rattled. You've thrown off my day a little bit, right? But beyond that, you were seeing people in your replies, people in your comments, people who were doing their own, whether they be media types or whatever, posting, quote tweeting, whatever the hell they would all say.
Whatever it is now.
Yeah, you would see all of them pointing out little stories like that. When I say little, I don't mean, but you got 280 characters.
Yeah, exactly.
It was. I remember the time you did Toy Mountain. I remember, the thing you hosted for Chio. I remember it's those little stories that, and I don't know why I keep saying that. Little is not. But you know what I'm saying? It's their own touch
and
to
the
them.
anecdotes, right?
Yes.
Where that I know, it was overwhelming, honestly.
Like, I know Matt Skube from the news, but I remember and I care about Matt Skube because of this other thing that I saw him do, right?
And again, and that to me and for personally will always, it means so much, right? And will always be more impactful for me for sure. And again, not to say that me or other members of the CTV, TSN, or other teams have not done great work.
Oh, of course.
But has always been the thing. And it was, honestly, like, I knew that the viewers, listeners, and I, over the years have gotten a lot of positive feedback about what I do and what we do. And so I knew that there was going to be some reaction, but I don't think I was really prepared for how much reaction there was going to be. Like, I'm not sure. I'm sorry to anybody who was listening that I didn't make it to their comment on, like, my Facebook post. The Facebook post, I think, had like something like 1,500 comments in a matter of days, and I'm just like, I just physically I'm trying to, like, get them and like them, and because I want to see all of them, and I just don't think they kept adding more. And it was like,
you reply to 30 and there's 30 more.
I was overwhelmed. It was overwhelming in the best way possible. And and I think
it's funny. You sit in a room like this, and obviously this is not a CTV studio, but you sort of forget how many people you're talking to, right? So you get behind the camera every night and you deliver
just looking
the news.
at a camera, right?
That's it.
I'm looking at a camera. How I like to think about it, I was either talking to like one person,
right,
kind of thing.
And even if you can sort of keep in mind that I'm talking to a lot of people, your mind is still kind of like, I don't know. Could I fit 100 people in this room? Could I fit 50 people? And then you forget, in a city the size of Ottawa, it's many multiples of that.
And then go outside of that to Eastern Ontario too, right? Because we're still everywhere.
And so all of a sudden, all of those people at once get told, yeah, Matt Skube's leaving, and all of them want to weigh in at once on what that means to them. There's no chance you're keeping up, right?
Like, and that was, and again, and it was humbling. It was special. And it's something that I'll never forget, the feelings of being able to go through those and just knowing, I think, that of the impact I think that I had in this community, in this really special community, which has meant a lot. So,
as we alluded to off the top, normally when people come in here for their exit interview, that's a very different vibe. It's people are not having their best day.
Yeah.
You're having a pretty good day. You are moving on.
I am.
To other things. You are headed down to the big smoke. Yes, you have not been punted out the door.
Yeah. And so still going to be working for Bell Media, just in a freelance capacity.
Right. Yeah. And so you're going to move to the GTA, a place I guess you haven't lived since you were in college.
True. Yeah.
Before we get into the specifics, any old haunts? Anything you're looking forward to? That guy used to make really good street meat or whatever it might be, right? Like, a place I used to like to go for lunch, or my favorite coffee shop, anything like that.
Well, I lived up the street from Hooker Harvey's, which I think is no longer there.
Oh, you're breaking my heart.
I know. I don't think it's there anymore. Like, but I used to, like, when I lived in Toronto, I lived at Carlton and Jarvis, like down the street from Maple Leaf Gardens, and it was like, don't walk through Allen Gardens.
McDonald's right in that neighborhood with like cathedral ceilings. I think 2 blocks west of the Gardens.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
And don't walk through Allen Gardens at night.
No.
So and that was learned that very very quickly, especially when you're like in sports media college, and you're when you stay to do late shows, like your quote unquote live shows.
Yeah.
It's like, no, at midnight don't walk through that park.
Right.
So that one I remember well. There's not I think the neighborhoods in some of downtown Toronto has changed, I think, a fair amount too.
Yeah.
And so, there are the usual spots that we've still been going to. My wife, her work team is there, and that's part of the impetus for us going too, is that, that she's been working remotely by herself, at home for 6 years.
That's tough.
And so she's looking forward to being back in the office
I
couple
bet,
of days. And so, and work has been great where like she's kind of moving into something and keeping a lot of the same of what she's doing, but also being there as well and being in person. So I'm trying to think about anything that I went to. There were a couple of places we went for falafel at one of the places down closer to Front Street off Jarvis that I remember being very good, but I could not tell you the name of
it's probably
of where it
changed
is.
Names 3 times.
Yeah, like the campus for CSM used to be right by the George Brown downtown campus.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it was like Queen. I'm trying to think. It was Richmond and George Street. Like it was on George Street. It was in the basement of a building.
All
but
the best
right up
schools
from
are in the basement.
I know exactly. It's kind of like it's in the basement. Like what are you talking about? And you walk. Oh, okay. It's like
welcome to DeVry.
It's expansive. Yeah. And so, but like we'll see. We've. My wife has been there enough, and we visited because, and even she lived there for a year. So when we met at St. FX when we were there. And then we both went our separate ways for a while.
Oh, okay.
And then we reconnected years later.
Right.
When she was living in Victoria and I was here in Ottawa. So we did a year of distance Ottawa-Victoria.
Sure.
And then she moved to Toronto initially in 2016. And that was the first time I was trying to get to Toronto. And it just, the opportunities and the timing, and it just didn't work out. Sure. So we did a year of Ottawa-Victoria, and then we did a year of Ottawa-Toronto. And I was going down once a week or every second week.
Yep.
And she lived at Yonge and Eglinton, right, in that area.
Right there,
and so
okay.
it was, we did a lot of different, whether walks around Mount Pleasant or otherwise, and being in, north, I love being up north too, like north of downtown, just north. So, there's going to be lots of adventures. I'm excited for, especially for my boys, like Jays games.
Yes.
Like I took my oldest to his first Jays game last summer, which was a really cool experience. We're going to do Wonderland. We're not going to live too far from the zoo. Like we're going to be in the Pickering area. So the zoo, I think, is like a 10-12 minute drive.
Are we, is it safe now that you're on your way out of the nation's capital to talk about another team that we may try and get your boys into once they're living in the GTA?
So I think that anybody who has listened to 1200, I'm not shy about it on TSN 1200.
Yeah.
But I've been a Leafs fan for a long time.
God love you, sir.
Yeah. And so, I showed you I didn't even realize today I had my Leafs shirt on that I just got for Father's Day from my boys. And from my wife. So, I had, my oldest is a pretty rock solid Sens fan. I tried to influence him initially. And then he played hockey this past year for the first time. We played in Stittsville.
How old would he be?
He's 6.
Okay.
And so he loves hockey.
Yes.
He is hockey obsessed and obsessed with the Sens, but wanted to watch playoffs every night and watch Sports Center every morning for highlights and stuff, and is learning players outside of Ottawa too.
Sure.
But we're doing math problems the other day, and he's something added up to 85. Dad, 85 Jake Sanderson. Right? Dad, 22 Mike Amadio, right? Like it's not even just the top players either. Like he knows numbers and is and loves that stuff.
Dad, July 1, Toronto minus 16.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. A-okay with that move, to be honest.
Same.
And so he's pretty hardcore Sens. So
It's
I don't
hard,
think
Like
that he's going to swap. And I don't want to. I'm not the type of there's been dads and different parents and buddies too.
Yes.
That have really pushed on their kids.
This is it.
This is we're in Ottawa. You need
a couple
to be
of my
a Sens
closest
fan.
friends have 2 little guys, and one's 10 now and one's 6. But this has been going on for a while. And because it would go against Dad, they would go with me and cheer for Toronto. Right? Because it's always fun to
exactly
annoy your parents. Or
and
whatever.
so I think he initially,
but he would get to school, and all his little friends started to be like, "Hey."
And so
it's
that's
Ottawa. And so I let them go. I didn't want it to become hard at school. I let them drift away. You'll be back when you get old enough to reach the age of reason or whatever.
That's exactly it. And so it was. So
I worry about your son now going into a new school.
But that's the thing now too, right? So I tried with the
have
Leafs.
to readapt.
He is so hardcore Sens, but now if he goes, is he actually going to convert? But our youngest, who is 4, I had him on. He's been a Leafs fan all year. Yeah. He's been into hockey this year. My dad got him an Austin Matthews jersey for his birthday.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, playoffs come around. They're playing each other.
Yeah.
all of a sudden he wants to cheer for the Sens.
No.
I was like, we were going to be two, like it was going to be me and him, and then against Asher, my oldest, and my wife who was going to cheer for the Sens. She's been a Vancouver fan because she lived out west, but she's like, I'm going to cheer for the Sens. 2-on-2, 2-on-2.
Yeah.
This is great. And then all of a sudden, Leo, our youngest, was like, it's like, no, I'm going to go Ottawa, go Sens, go Boo Leaf Spoo, and I'm like, where did this come from?
You're sleeping
What
in
is
the
this
yard
about
tonight,
right now?
kid.
I was like, what's happening? So, and I haven't pushed too hard. Same with like the fact that like it's like, you know, I shoot left-handed, I golf left-handed, I bat left-handed. And, you know, sure, would it be ideal if my boys were left-handed to do that? But I've just kind of like, same with the hockey stuff, I've mostly left it alone. And sure enough, they're both right-handed. They both want to shoot right. And they both want to golf right and bat right. And I'm like, you know, sure it comes from their mother's side and that's fine. But I've just like, you guys can. So I've kind of have tried to be as hands-off as possible.
Yeah.
We'll see about Asher. Yeah, exactly.
It's always you're a product of your environment.
Once the buddies or the friends are all are Toronto fans and, you know, we're going
all of
to
a sudden we
hopefully
love William
go to
Nylander.
a few to Toronto games. And yeah, exactly. 88 and 34. So and a few of them sticking around. So we'll see. I guess we'll see.
Tell us about, as much as you can, what you're going to be doing down there. You've been off since the end of April here in the nation's capital.
No.
But you've been gathered up. You've been getting ready to make the move down to the Big Smoke. What can we expect from you down there?
I'm excited. So I mentioned I'm going to freelance. So I'm going to be doing, and I think most of this conversation's been, I'm going to be doing a little bit of everything still, which is exciting. But I'm not. There were moments where I contemplated maybe leaving TV, and I was not ready for that. I'm not at the point where I was ready for that. So I'm going to be filling in, staying with Bell Media, just on a freelance basis. So I'm going to be filling in on Your Morning, which is the national CTV morning show.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to be filling in on CTV News Channel, likely too. So still doing some news here and there. I might be filling in on maybe being in Bloomberg, might be CP24, which is all news and local news in Toronto. And then, but
this demands the well-rounded.
Yeah, but the other big one for me too is TSN.
There you go.
So I was actually, you know, it's kind of come full circle for me this year too, is that I was at TSN a few weeks ago. I did a read through with them, which was great, and I'm waiting to confirm when I'm hopefully going to be able to fill in on SportsCenter. So that's been the dream for a very long time. You know, and
You and
just,
Jen Hedger will make Mrs. Scooby's night.
That'll be just that would be wild, to be honest.
Yeah,
and so
of course.
just to have that conversation, just to see her.
Yeah.
And 20 plus years later of that when I was 16. And so I don't want to get ahead of myself too much, but that's the plan, to do a little bit of everything and be covering off in all of those. So
Is there anything, you know, we talked earlier in the conversation about the idea of, you know, I'm doing local news here in Ottawa, but I feel it's important to understand national news and stay on top of everything that's going on worldwide. As you're moving on now, and it sounds like you are going to have a fairly diverse, well-rounded potential.
I'm going to be
portfolio.
everywhere on your TV.
Right.
Yeah,
like I
just everyone
suddenly,
knows,
if I'm doing Bloomberg, I got to know business stuff today. If I'm doing Your Morning, I got to know what's going on kind of worldwide, nationwide, certainly. Is there anything, and not in a bad way, but that's like, I'm glad to have these butterflies again, or maybe they don't exist for you. You've done it enough times that it's just another camera. Like, what are the feelings like going into something new like that?
Yeah, I still not all the time, but I would still get a few butterflies every time. Every time a show is starting, right? Like whether, you know, it was the first time doing the 5 o'clock show here in Ottawa, whether I was anchoring the 6 or any show that it was. I filled it on Your Morning in the past, and it's been great. You know, there certainly have been moments even where, you know, doing the read through at TSN, being in that studio, having not been in front of a camera in like 5 or 6 weeks, and like having to figure out what I was doing again, but also having almost an out of body experience. Like, oh my God, I'm in the TSN studio. So there have been moments where it's been more, you know, but I consider myself, again, preparation has always been huge for me. You know, whether I was doing a U Sports St. FX game in Antigonish, where I was like, I want to know players' backgrounds, I want to talk to them and do it and know as much as I can going in, whether I'm doing the news and whether it's a political story or otherwise. You know, I pride myself on being prepared going into those situations. Sure, are there you know, things that I know more about, aka sports, you know, or
We all have our
you know,
comfort zones.
right?
Right?
You know, exactly. Weather a little bit more and some of the news, absolutely, right? But does that mean, you know, I haven't done, you know, one of my first radio jobs was doing business updates,
Right.
Like when CFRA still did business updates. Like that was one of my first gigs in radio when I harassed Steve Wintegron, like just like I harassed him and JR when I was part-time to let me do something on radio.
Right.
I harassed him. Like I was in their office like 2 or 3 days a week, right? And it was like, let me do something. He's like, here, come in at 4 o'clock in the morning and do business business updates. I'm like, that's not ideal, but
can I
okay.
do something else?
Sounds great. I was like, they show me where the business headlines are, show me what I need to know, and I can do it. And that's always been my attitude. Like, I may not know it right now, but give me half an hour, and I'll be able to figure it out, and I'll make sure that I know it enough to sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So. A little bit of fake it till you make it, for sure. But it's like, and so, like there are moments there, but I think I'm far enough along. Like I'm almost 15 years total into the business, and I know what I'm good at. I know what to do. If I don't know what to do, I think I know the people to ask and how to clarify it. And if anything, it's just about keeping it simple and just not trying to do too much. So, so I'm looking forward to it. And I think that for me too, honestly, is that going from local, I want to experience now national level stuff, right? Like, so this is a step up, right? It's not necessarily technically a promotion because I'm doing this by choice.
Sure.
But now it's national shows. So how does, I've had this taste of your morning at points about, being there to fill in on March breaks and during the summer at points. Been wonderful. They're a fantastic team there, and I'm looking forward to being back. What is it actually like to do SportsCenter possibly on an every now and then basis? Yep. What is it like to be news channel, to be talking to people doing breaking news, but then talking to the newsmakers from, around the country and around the world at points, because, the world is a little bit of a scary place right now with what's going on.
You don't say, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So, now all that being said, I have disconnected in a very big way since I've finished working. Like I've
got a little window here.
Exactly. I have been able to, for the first couple of weeks, I didn't even watch the shows, the local shows or anything else. I just and even on my phone, like just not having work email on my phone anymore has been, a little bit life-changing, which has been wild. So
I can tell the good listener trying to get a hold of you over the last couple of months, trading texts one every week,
like
or two.
every week, every 2 weeks. It's been a little bit wild.
Sorry,
I know you're not the only one. I'm sorry, you're not the only one.
That's true. Yeah.
And so it's been spending more time with the boys. It's been liberating for sure, and it's been really nice. And now I'm slowly at the point where I'm getting back into it. The move is kind of
get the itch a little.
Exactly. The move is throwing a wrench into that too. But it's like I'm slowly starting to check things, be more involved. The big stories, I'm clearly know what's going on.
Right.
But I'm slowly starting working my way back in. But it's been a nice disconnect. It's been a really nice break, to be perfectly honest, about just being able to shut a lot of it down and close a lot of it off. And then, and still, not have to worry about it, because that's for 12, 14 years. That's all.
Had to worry about
you
it.
have to worry about it.
We'll be talking
whether
about it tomorrow.
whether you're, whether it's during your workday or not, right?
Yeah.
You're always connected.
Well, and
to
everything's
whatever's going on.
contextual, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, that might be not super relevant right now, but that thing that's happening in China in late January might be here in mid-March.
Exactly.
Right? Like these are,
as it did.
It did.
As
it happened to play out that
yeah,
way.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's been great. So I still will have some nerves for sure, especially I always get a little, but I think a little bit of nerves and a little bit of butterflies are always a good thing. I think it keeps you on your toes.
Agreed.
Keeps you, I think a little bit humbled too, in the fact like I don't, I have my family and my very close friends to keep me humbled anyways, right? Like I don't think my head. my thing is that I think to be in broadcasting, to be in TV, to be in radio, I think everyone has an ego. I think you have to have an ego to a certain point.
People want to hear what I have to say,
right? Yeah, there's a little bit of it there, no matter what. Some people are clearly going to have much bigger egos, and that's just the business. I think not just broadcasting, but I think that everyone has an ego, but it's about keeping yourself too grounded in the ways that work for you. Yeah. So and I I know the ways that work for me. So
it's all about keeping yourself from getting too north superior.
Yeah. This guy, second superior pun.
We come full circle on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've only got so many jokes in my repertoire, so you got to lean on them hard. Listen, as we sit here and talk right now, I'm not sure if this has come up yet, but for the sake of the good listener, you are in here 48 hours before you are moving out of town.
Yeah, true.
So for the talk that we have said about what you've done for Chio and Ronald McDonald House and Toy Mountain and all that, one more piece of charity on your way out of town to find a little time to come into the TCA studio and make your TCA debut, do your TCA exit interview, all in one go here. I'm really happy you made the time, man. I know I speak on behalf of the city when I say thank you for doing this and for doing everything you've done. Before I wrap us up here, anything else you want to close on or get out there before we shut it down?
Listen, thank you for the invite again. I've listened here and there to a number of the episodes, so I'm happy. This is actually the first podcast that I've ever done.
Really?
So I didn't tell you that beforehand or otherwise.
Well, I have your number now, so it's not going to be your last.
Yeah, and like exactly. And the other one, putting podcasts of the other shows at in the Bell Media Building. Those don't count as podcasts. Sure. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the invite. Love doing it. And yeah, you know what? I think that, leaving with this is that is my family and I are going to miss this community, right? Like it's been really special. And I think that, I mentioned it in some of my closing remarks that the Ottawa community, when people are in need and people, there's a disaster or there's something that happens or otherwise, people really do step up. I know that happens in a lot of places and it may sound cliche to someone who is maybe not from Ottawa or doesn't know the capital or Eastern Ontario, but I think that I've seen it time and time and time again about how good the people are in this community. So we are going to miss it. It's certainly going to be different. Don't judge me too harshly for going to the Big Smoke and going to the GTA, and being the center of the universe, I think, as we like to call it. While I was
blue shirt on.
Yeah, while I was here, yeah. But so I think that we are going to miss it. But I want to thank the listeners, the viewers, and everybody who sent notes or who has listened or who has watched over the years, and appreciate it. And again, still have the opportunity to do that. So appreciate the support. It's been a blast, and it's been times. And again, I'm going to have a connection to Ottawa for a very long time. Yeah. Both my boys were born here. My siblings are all still here. We're going to be coming back to visit the city, hopefully back for a few events here and there, and maybe come back for a couple of Sens games, especially maybe if they play the Leafs or otherwise. So I told my son, I told Ash,
be one of those rowdy invaders.
Exactly. We'll toss my jersey on and we'll come back for some of those games.
Toss it on.
Yeah.
No more blue jerseys being tossed anywhere else.
Exactly. Well, I never wore my Leafs jersey to a Sens game, right? Yeah. So I would have my blue shoes or otherwise, and so so no, it's been a time, to maybe to steal a saying from the East Coast. It's been a time, and it's been awesome, and so thank you to everyone.
Thank you to you.
Thanks
for everything you've done, for the 12 years of service to the nation's capital, and for the 90 minutes you've given me here here today. Hope I haven't kept you too long.
No way, no chance. Love this.
And now that I've got your number, and I know that I can get an answer out of you every 10 or 15 days.
Yeah, let me
we'll do
know.
a couple remotely when you get settled down there.
Take that up with Callum Fraser too. Big shout out for Callum, who got mad at me for not responding to him. New dad. Congrats, Callum. But yeah, whatever.
On behalf of myself and the TCA audience and Steve B. Thanks for doing this and try and do better on your sports wagers when you get down to the Big Smoke.
Make some better ones.
This is it.
It's time to take a holiday, shut it down and get away. All my friends are ready to play, and we're headed to the lake. Now I know what you came here for, good times and nothing more. We're walking out that door and headed to the lake. It's a talking summer, baby. Sports talking, we're sipping on craft beer. You can find us chilling on the lakefront. We can take it to the water.
All right, that was fun. That's the first time Matt Skube and I had ever met face to face. Done some of his local media football pools or March Madness pools, things like that he had set up. Certainly exchanged thoughts on hockey and different sports on social media before. But what a guy. On his way out of town, like I said, less than 48 hours before the moving trucks are showing up for him to leave, he makes time to come in and make what is both his TCA debut and also his Ottawa exit interview all in one shot. There is no reason to do that other than just being a good guy. Just wanted to come in, have a laugh, have a chat, kind of reminisce on his time in Ottawa. And that was really great. I'm really grateful that he made the time to do that. Lots of fun talking to him. So all the best to Matt Skube on his new adventure down in the Big Smoke. As I mentioned off the top, we are far from done here. I am done right here in this geographic location. When I hit stop on this, I am closing the studio door behind me and literally hitting the highway to the cottage. So kind of got an eye on the clock here as we finish up. But the show doesn't disappear. You know that. I bring some recording gear down to the lake with me. And we've got one or two other things pre-recorded. TCA is not going anywhere. We will have more of these 2025 TCA summer sessions. As I said, Friday morning, you'll hear from Andrew Stoughton from the batflip.ca and the Blue Jays Happy Hour podcast as they fire back up for the home stretch of the Major League Baseball season, kicking things off against the San Francisco Giants on Friday night. Stoughton will help us kick off the unofficial second half of the baseball season. Michaela Schreider from She's Got Game on TSN Radio rejoins me on Monday morning to talk about, whatever's topical in the moment. Next Wednesday, the 23rd, Ian Mendez from the Ottawa Senators returns to the Tall Can Audio podcast for a deep dive. And also next week, we finally get this done. Steve Bunda's return to the show. No doubt there will be some CFL talk in there. No doubt there will be some MMA talk in there. We'll see what else is going on by the middle of next week. So thank you all for checking out this one. If you're new here, if Matt Skube brought you in the door, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. We keep going all summer, and we try and have a good time around here. We'd love it if you'd join us. Give us a follow on social media at Tall Can Audio and subscribe to the podcast on, wherever you're hearing me right now. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are. Go ahead, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll try and keep you entertained here throughout the rest of the summer. Thank you once more to Matt Skube. Thank you once more to you for listening. Hope you're all having a fantastic week, and we'll see you on Friday morning with Andrew Stoughton.
CCA Summer Session.